Today we're going to be installing our 3-inch lift kit on this 2019 Toyota 4Runner. Let's go. With the factory wheel and tire removed, we can take a look and see what we're working with. Now we're replacing the upper control arm with the Rough Country aluminum upper control arm. It's designed with a ball joint angle that is optimal for the 3 inches of lift. And speaking of the 3 inches of lift, we're replacing the factory strut with our M1 monotube lifted strut. That's going to give us our 3 inches of lift in the front. We're going to remove the factory strut, we're going to remove the factory control arm. Before we do that, we need to unbolt our sway bar link, various brackets, and our tie rod. All right, now we're ready to remove the factory strut. We've got 3 14mm nuts on top, a 19mm bolt through the bottom. We'll get those removed. We'll make sure that our sway bar is up and out of the way. That way we can pull the strut out and drop it straight down. Let's go. All right, here we've got our factory control arm next to our Rough Country control arm. You can see the factory is a stamped steel. The ball joint angle is fairly flat for the factory ride height, whereas the Rough Country is a nice aluminum with a red powder coat, and we've got our ball joint angle corrected for the additional lift. We've also got factory style ball joints as well as bushings for years of service and a great ride. And here we've got our factory strut next to our M1 monotube strut. Now they almost take up the same amount of space, but your lift is going to come from your spring rate. As you can see, this spring is beefier than the factory. It's not going to collapse quite as much, giving you your additional lift. And again, the shock is valve specific for that lift and the weight of the 4Runner. It's also monotube, which means that the nitrogen and the oil are not going to combine, which reduces any chance of cavitation, giving you better performance and ride on and off-road. Now we'll go ahead and install our Rough Country upper control arm. Then we'll get our M1 lifted strut, put it in place, and button up everything that we disassembled. We're going to leave this loose so we have plenty of movement in it. Once we get everything reassembled, we'll come back and torque it down. Now we just need to move our brake union back in place, bolt it back up, replace our splash shields, and that's going to finish the front. This looks 100 times better under here, and I can't wait to see just how much better it rides and performs. Now we're ready to move to the rear. I've installed our caliper covers, both front and rear. That's going to match the upper control arms in the front, give us a pop of color coming through those windows on the Series 90 wheels. It's going to look great. We're ready to install our lifted coils as well as our M1 shocks. Before we do that, we're going to need to disconnect our sway bar link as well as our factory shock upper and lower. We also need to disconnect a bracket for the brake lines on the driver's side and the ABS lines on the passenger side. Here you can see the difference between the factory coil and the Rough Country lifted coil. Not only is there a height difference, there's also a coil thickness difference, and the spring rate varies. This is going to give us all the performance off-road and the ride comfort on-road that we expect with this 3-inch lift. And here you can see the factory gas shock next to our M1 monotube shock. This shock is valved specifically for the amount of lift on the 4Runner. Also has additional length. Not only that, we also include a bump stop on the M1s for the 4Runner. This is going to give you excellent on-road ride and off-road performance. All right, I've transferred the factory spring isolator, the upper one, to the Rough Country coil. Now we're ready to insert it. And with the rear completed, the installation of our 3-inch kit is done. Now we can move on to installing our wheels and tires. And if you remember, we're going with the Rough Country Series 90 in a bronze, wrapped in the Rough Country mud terrain tire. Now that Series 90 is an aluminum wheel. It's It's gonna be nice and lightweight, and it has a negative 12mm offset. It's gonna push that tire out, give us additional stabilization off-road. But we've wrapped it in the mud terrain. It's got great performance on-road, a nice quiet ride, and superior traction off-road. Let's go ahead and get these mounted up. All right, we've got the wheels and tires mounted up. Let's get it sitting on the ground so we can see just how good it looks. Not only does this kit make this 4Runner look great, the drive here on the highway was superb. I would venture to say that it was better than factory. Getting onto the trail, you can really tell that these M1 struts are valved for both the weight of the 4Runner and the overall lift. They are doing their job. This ride is smooth, making sure all the tires stay planted. I'm having no trouble with traction whatsoever. Not only that, but the increased ride height, both from the lift and the wheels and tires, give you confidence to make sure you can tackle any obstacle, like this right here. There we go. Nice. For as good as the 4Runner is out of the box, this rough country kit makes it that much better. If you've got a 4Runner and you haven't lifted it, why not? And we're just getting started. We've still got a lot to do with this 4Runner. And the best thing is, every product we're using is available to you all day, every day at roughcountry.com.